This is probably going to make this really slow. Classes so that shortly you will be able to have access to all of the class material that we have done so far. Eventually, somebody's going to say, you know, Mr. C, what would be really cool is if somebody collected all the stuff that you've done and turned it into, I don't know, a fancy website or whatever, so that people could see it forever and ever, and it would be like, you know, a permanent archive or something. And I would say, sweet, that sounds awesome, but I don't know how to do that. So if you want to do that, that'd be great. And that's, yeah, at some point that's going to happen. But it hasn't happened yet. So I'll have to, I'll be linking off of YouTube videos that I am even now uploading to YouTube. YouTube really doesn't like 3-hour videos. But hey, too bad, because that's what we do here. So
YouTube doesn't like 10-minute videos. So.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I don't know what to do about that. That's YouTube's problem, not mine. So I could, I suppose, go through and edit out all the tangents and irrelevancies and weirdness that this class consists of, but then it would be a 3-minute video.
No, there'd be nothing left.
Right, exactly. So that's not happening.
It would be completely uninteresting.
I don't know if it would be completely uninteresting, but it wouldn't be interesting enough for me. I don't know. I kind of like the manic weirdness.
Me either.
As I'm sure you can tell.
Get rid of the weirdness. You're basically.
Well, but this is how I learn stuff. Maybe you're not the, and this is relevant. Well, Logan, whoa, man. Are we getting on the relevance train already here?
Can't believe this.
Wow. I mean, we're like 3-4 minutes into class and already people are whinging about relevance.
Don't question.
So this is an example, right? Okay. So it's Halloween. The day before Halloween, Google comes out with this awesome, some of you know what I'm talking about already, this awesome like Google game thing. The Google Doodle turned into a game and whatever. Anyway, so it's like 6 a.m. My daughter goes to work at 5:30. She is a web developer, as a matter of fact. So she goes to work at 5:30. And she's 19, and she gets paid $57,000 a year. Ignore that. So she messages, if we have this like family group chat thing, and she messages everybody at 6 a.m. how cool the Google Doodle is for the day, right? So now I'm up because all the electronic devices in the house go pa-ding all over the house, and so now I'm up. So is it Marco Polo? No, although we can talk about that. Anyway, so I figure, okay, fine, I'll look at the Google Doodle. So I look at it, but I didn't click on the game part. I just clicked on the other part, like where the doodle was, and it pulled up a page on Halloween. I'm like, well, I know quite a bit about Halloween, but I'll read through. Maybe they've changed something. And about a third of the way down, I hit this thing about the Triduum of All Hallows Tide. And I'm like, excuse me, that's 2 words I don't know. So I looked up what a Triduum is. A Triduum is a 3-day festival. All festivals should be at least 3 days.
I agree.
I mean, gives you time for feasting. So there's 3 day, the Triduum of All Hallowmas or All Hallows Tide. Now I've heard of All Hallowmas before, but I've never heard of All Hallows Tide before. So in the article, I find out, for instance, that the reason All Hallows Even falls on the day before All Saints Day is that the word for sanctify, to saint, essentially, that's Latin, and the word hallowed is Celtic. And that's why instead of All Saints Eve, it's All Hallows Even, and then All Saints Day. I did not know this. I also did not know that the 3rd day of the Triduum, the feast day, is called All Souls Day. I did not know that either. And All Souls Day, children go a-souling. They go souling. Essentially, they go from door to door begging for a figgy pudding. Well, not exactly, but close. They go begging for soul cakes. And I knew this. When I got to that, I'm like, wait, I know a song about this. It's a chant that kids would sing at the well, you're very smart, Jetty. I'm just as an illustration of how I learned stuff. Okay, so I know the song. So I played the song, one by Sting, one by Peter, Paul, and Mary, one by the BYU Singers, which is my favorite one. And it's a mashup of God Rest You Merry Gentlemen and All Souls and the Solon, which is a sort of a minor key, plaintive, begging kind of song. But has in it things like, God bless the mistress of this house, likewise the master too, and all the little children that round the table grow, which has been ported into a Christmas song, which I can't ever remember the name of. But that is part of the souling song. And then you would get a soul cake. I know what a soul cake, well, I didn't know what a soul cake was. But I knew the song about a soul cake. Soul cake, a soul cake, please good mistress, a soul cake. I know the song, the little rhyme. But I didn't know what a soul cake was. Because the internet is awesome and an endless rabbit hole of possibility, I click on the soul cake and up comes a recipe for soul cakes. Well, there went the rest of my day, because now I have to make soul cakes. So I started making soul cakes. And
Send that to us. Send that to us.
I will send you all the stuff. I'll send you all the stuff. So then I had to make soul cakes. But then in the soul cakes, you have to have apple cider vinegar. Well, I didn't have any apple cider vinegar, so I had to go to the store. So then I went to the store to get, I mean, does this sound like if you give a mouse a cookie? Because my entire life is like if you give a mouse a cookie. And if you do not know the reference for give a mouse a cookie, your homework is to buy the freaking book and read it every day because it is amazing. And there's like 5 others. But no, Beck's not going for that. No, it's short. It's a picture book. You'll like it. I promise. Anyway, so I made soul cake.
The internet is dangerous.
By the time I got home, I forgot that it was only 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, and I put in 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, and that apparently didn't make any difference. Because as far as I was concerned, it was still delicious. So I played, I mean, so this is how I learned stuff. And apparently you learn stuff a lot like this too, because apparently you like, because I conduct my class more or less exactly the way that I learn things. Start with something, and then the Hydra explodes, and there's heads everywhere, and we're fighting them off, and or not, you know, whichever. And anyway, if you give a moose a muffin, that's good. Is that a real thing? Because I would read that book. All right.
Yes,
We have it. We have it.
All right,
Jersey,
I'm
your
fine.
homework for this
Hold on.
week is to buy it and read it every day.
Excuse me, I have to buy a book. Hold on.
Bye bye.
If you give a moose a muffin, oh look. I'm buying this for my granddaughter.
Hey, there's another one called If You Give a Cat a Cupcake.
What? Never heard of that one.
Really? That's good. I'm buying this for my granddaughter, so it's okay. All right. I know I don't have any book budget left for the month of November, but this is not part of my book budget. This is for the baby. This is
It's
not.
only the 9th.
You're telling yourself.
This is a gift.
My book budget is
Yeah.
gone on the 2nd. I have 272 items on my Amazon wish list.
What kind of person sets aside a budget just for books?
If I didn't,
People
I
who
would,
have bills to pay.
if I didn't, I would be having to steal McDonald's internet to do this class because I would not have. I would not be living in a house. And that's stooping too low. I will not go that low. I have some pride. Not very.
Yeah,
I have such a big Amazon Audible wish list. It's scary. It's like
I know, right?
8 pages.
I know. I really think, though, I proposed this to my wife, but she didn't go for it. But I proposed that that I should be able to spend every dollar that I make selling books on books. That seemed like logical. She did not go for that.
I don't blame her.
Yeah, I don't know.
I like this plan.
But it was a nice try. By the way, Poop into Gold is now has now sold 1,000 copies in pre-sale. The actual official launch of the book is December the 4th. So we still have almost a month before the official launch of the book, and we have 1,000 copies in pre-sale. And that means that people have bought this book that I do not personally know.
That's awesome.
I'm so excited.
But
I'm so excited. All right, hardcover. Buy now with one click. Why not? Why not? Here, open my vein, take my blood. It's what you do. I understand. It's fine. It's fine.
Mr. C, when's your birthday?
July 1st. Why? You want to give me something? You want me to give you something? It is my unbirthday today, though.
Happy birthdays.
Yay!
It is my unbirthday today. Today is my unbirthday.
Happy unbirthday!
My son's in that play, so I went to see it last night. He is not the Mad Hatter, which I'm sad about because he'd have been a better Mad Hatter than the Mad Hatter was, but this literally cannot be more identical to me. Yeah, well, you know, that's how my life goes. Oh my gosh, okay, today I even have like little Post-it notes that I made to make sure that we stay on task today, and already it's not working. So what can I say? I'm sorry, Morgan. So I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I know you're like laser focused all the time, but if you don't like the way I teach the class, nobody's gonna make you come. So
Why would you stay focused on one thing for more than 5 minutes? That sounds like misery.
well, fortunately today we don't have that problem because today we have
I can
the
stay
saga.
focused on the same thing for 4
The
hours.
overwhelming operatic tragedy, the epic disaster that is the Trojan War. Because we have passed out of Egypt, we'll finish up our Egypt stuff next week when we joust on chariots and stuff.
Reporting for duty, sir.
But today we have to do the Trojan War. And we can't just talk about the Trojan War, though.
I
We have to go back to the deep and disturbing roots of how the whole Trojan War thing happened in the first place. Yes, we do. I want to warn you right now, there will be blood and death in today's class. There will be seduction by various mortal and and immortal beings. There will be children hatched from eggs. There will be people popping out of horses. There will be prophetesses. There will be human sacrifice. There will be people who really regret performing human sacrifice. There
How
will
do you
be...
sacrifice us through the screen, Mr. C?
Oh, yeah, cool. That would be good. I don't know how to do that. My computer's not, like, I think I need a firmware upgrade. My computer doesn't do that. Sorry. Anyway, let's go back to the very beginning of all of this. The entire class today is the Trojan War. But you can't understand how the Trojan War happened if you don't understand how we got there in the first place. First off, you got to know where Troy is. And the problem with that is we don't really, but we kind of do a little bit, sort of. Hold on, I got to let Hiram into class. All right, so we kind of, but sort of, but kind of not know where Troy is. The problem is, for most of archaeological history, people start digging things up and analyzing them sometime around the middle of the 1600s. So, and they start really, really, really digging stuff up and getting excited about it around the beginning of the 1800s. Anyway, so it's only been a couple hundred years that we've been running around digging stuff up and going, oh, look, this means that we have a culture based on archery or whatever. I don't know. Y'all did this. We went through this exercise. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, so, but most people, you know, archaeologists are not gifted, generally speaking, with a great imagination. So when they started, I mean, if they dig up something, oh, look, a column, or oh, look, a shattered visage, or whatever, that's great. I mean, that's great, but they don't really, most archaeologists did not really believe that Troy was a real place, that it was just, that the Iliad is just a mythological construction, and it's not really, really real. It's not, this is not a real place. Fortunately, there were people with imagination and money. Money is the great superpower. I think, because I didn't see this movie, but I think in Justice League there is actually kind of a cool section where there's a conversation between one of the superheroes and Batman. And he, you know, talks about his superpower, and he looks over at Batman and says, "What's your superpower?" And he looks back and says, "I'm rich." Yeah, okay, so if you are rich and you have an imagination, you can waste an enormous part of your fortune trying to dig up a city nobody believes is there. So what he did was he studied the Iliad and Herodotus and a couple of other ancient texts, and then he outfitted a gigantic expedition and went off in the deserts of Asia Minor to dig for it. Because why not? What if you find it? So, and then he did. And then he did. Heinrich Schliemann is this guy's name. I can remember the most obscure crap. Why do I even remember this guy's name? I remember my dad telling me about this story when I was a little kid. S-C-H-L-E-M-A. Yeah, Heinrich Schliemann is his name. German multi-millionaire, and decided he wanted to go and dig up Troy. So he went and dug, and blam, there was Troy. And here's Troy. Funnily enough, Troy was right where the ancient writers said it would be.
No.
I know. It seems impossible. And yet, where's my little icon thing here that tells me, no, that's bad. I don't want to do that.
I never would have guessed.
Yeah, well, nobody else did. So, all right. Pop out. Where's my little thing that pops up my share my screen thing? There we go. So I believe to be Troy in 1870. German adventurer and con man. Ooh. Now I need to do more research on Heinrich Schliemann.
This just got more interesting.
No kidding, right? Now I'm like, really? And con man.
I'm helping you on this. Hold on.
Huh. I wonder why? I wonder who he conned.
Okay. It's the guy. Well, 1 second.
Start share. Ah! Ha ha ha! I knew I could figure it out. Okay, here we go. Share. Kaboomafoo.
Maps.
Maps. I love maps. It's a map. It's a map. Oh wait, no, that's something else. Anyway, so
The Double Explorer.
He doesn't look like a con man. He looks very professional.
of course he does. He's German. Oh, I love the helmet. That's fantastic. That is the appropriate attire for today's class. That's good. So he digs for it and blam, there's Troy, right where he said it was. Personally, I believe most of the mythology around the Trojan War. I'm not sure that I'm all in on the whole idea. Oh, I'm sorry, Jetty. I'm not sure that I'm all in on the whole idea of the semi-immortal Achilles and stuff. Like, there may be certain things in the Trojan War history that I'm not 100% buying off on, if you understand what I mean. But in the broad strokes, I actually believe that it's probably real. So anyway, the major cities that matter to our tale today are Athens and Sparta, which were not the Athens and Sparta that you're thinking of. So the whole Spartan 300 at the hot gates of Thermopylae, that we'll get to that, but that's not today. That's later. Much, much later, about 300 years, 400 years from where we're going to be talking about today. Also, the Athens of the poets and the playwrights and the Acropolis and the Eleusinian mysteries and all that stuff. Dad was a Lutheran minister. What? Because his dad was a Lutheran minister, he can't be a con man?
Well, I didn't find anything on there.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure we will, because I'm sure that most of our day just went down that rabbit hole. Anyway,
well, he was a businessman, so I'm imagining like some like disgruntled like.
Yeah, that's probably.
Totally con me.
Jealous people. Yeah, but it's cool. Yeah. Okay. So, that Athens is not the Athens that we're talking about either. This is not the Athens of Aeschylus and Sophocles and Socrates and all the other teases. It's not. That's not this Athens. That Athens doesn't happen for another 300 or 400 years. Okay. So this is before this. In the deep, deep recesses at the beginning of Greek history. Not that there is any reason to call them. This is before. This is kind of more like a village of Athens than the great city that we think of now. That village will end up disappearing and then being reborn a couple hundred years later. But that story is for another time. So this is way back in before the Greek Dark Ages. And they would not have called themselves Greeks. They wouldn't actually have understood that term at all. Nobody had any idea that that's what that was. They would have called themselves Achaeans. A-N-S. Lots of A's in that. They would have called themselves Achaeans. And various other kinds of things. They would have referred to themselves by the area of the land that they lived in and not by not by any sort of nationality. There was no nationality. There was no national Greek state or any of that. That wasn't a thing. Let us then voyage back to one of the older and lesser known, but still relatively important myths about Zeus. Zeus. So, speaking of random stuff you don't really need to know, but I'm going to tell you anyway because it reminded me of that. We have lots of grapevines in my backyard, and they produce copious amounts of grapes. And so at harvest time, when our kids smell the grapes boiling on the stove, they come wandering in from outside going, juice. Anyway, I thought that was funny. So those of you who don't know your Hercules.
Mr. C.
What?
So, if you removed all the stuff that we didn't really need to know, like we said, this would
We
not
wouldn't be
interested
interested.
at all.
I'm glad
Maybe
you're interested.
Boring history class.
I'm glad, because I'm like actively embarrassed by all the stuff we talk about in this class about a third of the time.
Why? This is awesome.
I'm
You're
glad you
teaching
think so.
why limit yourself?
It's so
Not
fun.
quite awesome, more like epic.
I do
It's
not
so
know.
much
the
fun.
Only
meaning
you
of-
can embarrass yourself, Mr. C.
When you find the people of your tribe, it's so much fun. Seriously, it's so great. Because then you can just be you and you don't have to worry about it. Anyway, so Zeus. For those of you who are not acquainted with the mythology surrounding Zeus, father of gods, Zeus has a little bit of a personal problem. He does not seem to be able to keep his toga on. Zeus fathers an incredible array of children of all types and varieties, all over the Mediterranean. He doesn't even confine himself to Greece. We'll get to Zeus and the whole problem with Minoan Crete next week. We're not doing that. Anyway, so at one point, I have to remember what this woman's name is.
There's too many of them. You can't keep.
Yeah,
them
there's a
straight.
lot of them. Anyway, so Zeus, one day is walking along in Olympus. You saw where Olympus is located, sort of up in the northern part of Greece. He decided that, I don't know, he fell in love with this woman. Now I'm trying to remember what her name is.
Is it his wife?
No. Oh, God, no. There's no evidence that he was ever in love with Hera. Like, that is the weirdest coupling, like, ever, because I don't know. They don't particularly like each other, as far as I can tell. Which is not
they both
really,
say-
it's not really a surprise. Hera's a harpy. She's always complaining. Apparently, she's beautiful. We'll get to that in a minute. But apparently, she's beautiful. So Helen, oh, well, we haven't got to that yet. All right, so Leda, that's what it is. Leda. Nice, that is a nice cat. Yeah, I have a black one too. Not that shaggy. And much more annoying. He would never let you do that. Leda. So Zeus falls in love with Leda. Leda is not 100% into the whole Zeus thing. So Zeus transforms himself into a swan. Apparently that worked much better. I know. Look, people, if you're grossed out by this stuff, this next several weeks is really going to stink because there's just a lot of this. Anyway, so after she falls in love with the swan, she gives birth to 2 eggs. This is Leda, okay? She gives birth to a pair of eggs. Apparently, there is some dispute, actually, about whether both eggs were Zeus's, because apparently she also really liked her husband, and anyway. McKenna.
I forgot my question.
No!
Okay.
Did it have something to do with eggs?
Yes, it did.
Okay, women don't really give birth to eggs.
Oh yeah, was Leda a human or did she turn into a?
Now she was a human, I guess.
Okay.
Maybe she was a platypus. I don't know. They give birth to eggs.
Okay.
That's probably. People tell me, I don't know. Does God have a sense of humor? And I'm like, have you seen the platypus?
Butterfly and hyenas are experiments gone wrong in heaven.
Right. And he puts them all in Australia. Australia is filled with stuff that God's like, oh, no. Put that down there. Australia itself is a place that God's like, what do we have left over? Yeah, we'll throw it all down there. That's great. It'll be fine.
Including the people.
It's like, oh, I've got some scrap pieces. I can make a new species.
Right.
Oh, that turned out wrong. Let's put it in Australia.
No. Where do we put that? Stick it in Australia. Put it down there in Australia. Dinner plate sized spiders.
I thought you'd like Mr. C.
What? I love Australia.
Your cousin.
I have a lot of cousins. I don't like all of them. That's not true, actually. I like.
So you don't like.
Depends on the day, really. Anyway, so Zeus and Leda. And Leda gives birth to 2 eggs. From the eggs, 4 children hatch. This is also not a thing, but it doesn't matter. So 4 children hatch from the eggs. They are all important in various ways. 2 of them hatch from, 2 boys hatch from 1 egg. It depends on the myth here. They get scrambled. Here's the egg thing. Anyway, so 2 of them hatch from 1 egg.
Excellent.
And they are Castor and Pollux, which is sort of weird because Pollux's name in Greek is actually Polydeuces. But in this case, nobody knows that one. Everybody knows only the Roman name, only the Latin name.
By the way, Mr. C, you made an excellent pun.
Ah! That was horrible.
That's it. One more egg pun and I'll crack.
Please.
And once again, Mr. C has lost control of the class. That's okay. Anyway, so Castor and Pollux are 2 Greek heroes. Actually, those are the Latin names for the Greek heroes. Also a constellation. They're twins, of course, because they hatch from the same egg. The other egg hatches 2 women. One of them is named Clytemnestra. She'll be important in a minute. And the other one is named Helen, which is not a particularly Greek name, but it is. Her name is Helen.
Look at those names side by side. Like,
I know.
I think you can tell who the mother liked more.
We have a chicken named Helen.
Do you have a chicken named Clytemnestra?
No.
But we also have a cat named Athena.
Did she spring fully formed from your father's forehead?
No.
Oh.
But
I'm
she's
gonna-
really like Athena. Like
She
her
sleeps
fit.
on my forehead sometimes.
Oh, there you go. I'm sure it's you got to be careful when you name people things. Anyway, so Helen, Clytemnestra, beautiful. Castor and Pollux, handsome and charming. Helen was so beautiful, so young, that once upon a time, a Greek hero named Theseus, whom we will talk about a lot more next week, but a Greek hero named Theseus kidnapped her and brought her to Athens to wait for her to grow up so that he could marry her. Castor and Pollux, while Theseus was away doing some sort of adventuring, Castor and Pollux broke into the castle and stole her back. When it came time for her to wed, thousands of men showed up and paraded themselves before her throne in order to win her as their bride.
I knew it. It's the face that launched 1,000 ships.
Yes, correct. We'll get there. To the 1,000 ships, I mean. So Theseus, well, he disappears from our story. He does not come back into it. He'll come back in next week. But at this point, we are assembling a large variety of characters in our story. So I think in order for us to help us to maintain a sense for who is who, I'm going to need you to go and get some action figures. And or, I don't know, other kinds of posables, like, I don't know, Barbies or dinosaurs or whatever you got.
I got Lego figures.
Sure, great. Awesome. Just we're going to need
Dollars to do that.
we're going to need a plethora. Because there's a lot of people in this story. It's going to get pretty weird.
We don't exactly have people. We kind of have more of creatures. Like
Creatures is good. That's fine.
look past the puzzle.
Some of the people in the story are more creature-like than human-like, so that could be okay. And I'm going to set my camera up so that it doesn't look like you're looking down, looking up at me, and I'm this Titanic figure. I don't know. I'm going to work on that.
Who got kidnapped? I've been trying to write everything down, but I can't do it fast enough, and I don't remember who Theseus kidnapped.
Oh, Helen. Theseus kidnapped Helen.
Okay. All right, thank you.
But she was rescued. This will be a theme in Helen's life. Ah, there we go. That's a whole lot better. Oh, good. Yes, that's good, Tay. I like that one. That's good.
Yeah, we're just using a bunch of Korean stuff, so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
Oh, she's a how rude.
Yeah, I gotta move my notes here so I don't get distracted here. All right, let's see. Notes. All right. We get to, no, not yet. Okay, so now we have to go back to another one. Okay, so if you don't have anything, it's fine. I'm pretty confident we're gonna have plenty. All right, we need, now we're going to move from Greece. First of all, we need a Helen. She's like one of our big characters here, so we need a Helen.
Right here.
No, we'll have people with bows later. Does that work up there?
Would a unicorn work?
Just don't have any more stitches on your face again.
Yeah.
Got a Chewbacca.
Right. Sorry. Okay, I gotta bring Bilbo back in. Sorry, I clicked the wrong button there. Okay, so I like the Chewbacca. That's almost appropriate.
We got a unicorn.
We'll need unicorns later. I'm going with Bilbo Baggins's figure there. It sort of looks like somebody in a medical smock, and it actually looks like a dude. But that's okay. That's okay. There's our Helen. Nobody has a Barbie? Nobody plays with Barbies here? I'm just disgusted. Anyway.
My sister does.
McKenna's like, wait, a Barbie. Otherwise, I was just going to use McKenna. There you go. McKenna's Helen. Great. She can prance around her living room or whatever. There's going to be a lot of prancing, a lot of weirdness in our tale. Anyway, so Helen, we have a Helen. Okay, that's good. We now need a Priam. I like that Lego figure up there. That's good. Yeah, okay. That'll work. That'll work good. Why is
This
that?
one?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Is that you, Jetty? Okay, that's Jetty's action figure.
Yep.
All right, cool. Whoa, that was cool. Sure, why not? Okay, so I like that for Helen. That's good. Yeah, McKenna. Okay, McKenna's got Helen. We're gonna use Bilbo. We're gonna use your guy in a minute. You can be Paris. Okay, so on this wise is the birth of Paris. We have Helen, who is one of the key figures in our story, and now we need to bring in Paris. King Priam, up there you go, King Priam, and his wife, Queen Hecuba. I am not making that up. There'll be a lot of weird names today. I need a Queen Hecuba. Got us a Queen Hecuba. Oh, there we go. Yes, that's great. That Yoda looks exactly like Hecuba. Okay, good. So there's, oh, hey, Knight in Shining. We're going to use that in a minute. Good. The Knight in Shining armor. That'll be really good. Okay, so Paris and Hecuba. Paris is the king of Troy, and his wife is the queen of Troy. And Hecuba becomes pregnant, and she's about to have a child, and she has a dream. And in the dream, she sees her child as a burning torch. And so they go to the soothsayers and say, what does this mean? What can this thing mean, this dream here? And the soothsayer says, okay, well, let me say some sooth. And the sooth is, no, I can't see you. By the way, a soothsayer, this comes from a contraction of a Nordic term, probably a Saxon term, an oath, in fact, God's truth, which just got contracted down to sooth. So you have forsooth, for God's truth. You have soothsayers, and you have an ancient, imprecation, sort of like dang or whatever, struth, which is one of my favorites. When you got mad, you'd say struth. And anyway, so just so you know. So that's a soothsayer, is one who tells God's truth. Anyway, so he says the torch means that your child will be the destruction of Troy. And they're like, well, we can't have that. So what do kings and queens do when there's a prophecy about how their kid is going to destroy their country or the king or whatever? Yeah, they kill him. But they can't ever bring themselves to kill their own child. You can't do that. The gods would be very unhappy with you.
So they asked someone else to.
Wow, it's like you've heard this story before. It's weird.
Or they abandoned them in the middle of nowhere.
Wow.
Well, it's not like it happens in like every single fairy tale ever.
Yeah, just most of them.
Just almost all of them, yeah, it's true. So yes, you guessed it. They give him to a herdsman and tell the herdsman, go out and kill the kid. And the herdsman's heart is moved with compassion on the child. And he cannot kill the child either. So he just takes it out on the hill and leaves it there. Because then it's not your fault if the kid dies, right?
Wow.
I didn't kill him. But along comes a she-bear, and instead of doing what she-bears normally do, which is eat human children, the she-bear decides to feed the human child instead. I'll leave to your imagination the method of doing so. Anyway, so then after 9 days, the herdsman goes back in the hills to find the child and bring it home for burial, and lo, the child is thriving and has grown far larger than any normal child should grow in that period of time. And is that Bilbo's got the she-bear? There you go. That looks like a donkey, but don't worry about that. Because there's a she-bear and there's Paris. Okay, so Paris is brought back to Troy, and this time they're like, well, I guess the gods want to save the kid. Oh, you have a bear there, Copeland? Is that what you have an actual bear? Oh, look at that. Okay, well, close enough. Good, I like it. So yes, an actual bear. So anyway, then they're like, well, okay, so in another version of the myth, Paris grows up the herdsman brings Paris back to his house and raises him as his own child. Hey, look, Joe. And doesn't tell him that he is the son of the king until he's grown to a certain age or whatever, which is like every myth ever. It's like Theseus is like that. But also like modern fairy tale stuff. How many stories can you think of where the kid grows up, doesn't have any idea that he's super powerful or the child of the king or any of that kind of thing? How many of those do you
Moses.
know? Moses.
1,000.
Moses is like in reverse. He grows up thinking he is the child of the king, and it turns out he's really not. Cyrus the Great. Yes.
Alexander the Great.
Alexander the Great. He always knew he was king. He got uppity pretty fast. But Cyrus the Great, yes, absolutely. Luke Skywalker.
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter. We love this story. I'll tell you why next week. Anyway, so he grows up and he becomes
Percy Jackson.
Percy Jackson. He's extraordinarily handsome, is Paris. Where's Paris? Paris is extraordinarily handsome. Why his name is Paris, I have no idea. That's weird. But anyway, so I'm missing. Oh, there he is. There's Paris. Yes, he's extraordinarily handsome. And all the moon, and in order to keep him from creating chaos and whatever, King Priam sends him off on essentially a goodwill tour of Greece. He's supposed to go to all the major cities of Greece and charm the people so that there will be lasting peace between Troy and the Greeks. Yeah. Remember what I wrote earlier this week about making plans and what the gods do when you make plans? Anyway, the gods are like, this is so funny. Anyway, so, all right, so that's the birth of Paris, the birth of Helen. While Paris is on his goodwill tour, one of the minor goddesses, a goddess named Thetis, Thetis, is going to get married to some guy who's not important.
Hitting her head, that's all.
I need a Thetis. Who has a goddess for me?
Right here.
Weirdly appropriate. Okay, so Chewbacca is Thetis. Sorry, that's fine. Okay, we're gonna get to the dragons. Believe me, wolves, we're coming to the creatures. All right, so in fact, right away here. So stop me if you've heard this one before. All the gods want to come to the wedding because, you know, she's like a cousin or whatever, and everybody wants to come to the wedding. So all the gods are invited, except one.
One.
Her name is Eris, E-R-I-S, and she is the goddess of discord. In fact, Eris means discord in Greek. She is the evil goddess of discord, so she doesn't get invited to the wedding. We need, hey, wolves, hold up Thetis. Just pick one. Just pick a Thetis.
Boo-hoo for her.
Goddess of Discord. There you go. That's great. No. I need the bowman later. We're like the dragon. We'll do fine. There we go. Great. There's Thetis. But of course, Thetis or Eris says, sorry, that's Eris. So Eris, of course, says, oh, well, I understand why nobody wants me around. That's cool. I was actually planning a trip to the shores of the Black Sea anyway. And so y'all have a great time. And make sure you send me lots of selfies. And I can't wait to see you when you get back. Okay. Of course not. Eris is like, I'll show you. And Eris shows up at the wedding. A big cloud of smoke or whatever, you know, the usual thing. You've seen the movie. What movie am I talking about?
Sleeping Beauty.
This is Sleeping Beauty. Yeah. I know we all think we're writing all this super original stuff. We're not. We're basically just stealing all of this crap. Some people, like
repeats.
Like Riordan just decided he's just going to go with it and like lean into it and just actively steal all of it. I thought that was a pretty good idea. Anyway, so, and he's made millions of dollars doing that. So who am I to criticize? Anyway, so at the wedding, Eris shows up and casts a golden apple into the middle of the proceedings. That would be bad enough because, of course, the gods are all going to squabble like 2-year-olds over a cookie, but it's inscribed. Well, yeah, golden apples, yes. This is more like a poison apple. Let's just go through the Disney movies here. Anyway, so she tosses the poison apple. It's not really a poison apple. It's just a golden apple, and it is inscribed with the words, "To the fairest."
Mirror,
Well, that's
mirror
good.
on the wall, who's the fairest of them all?
Yeah, who kn- but obviously everybody knows who the fairest is. Or do they? Well, 3 goddesses are like, obviously, that means me.
I know this story.
Yeah, I bet you do.
I know. Yeah.
This is the genesis. This is where it starts to go really, really bad.
Yep.
So 3 goddesses, Hera, of course, Aphrodite, of course, and Athena all decide, you know what, this means me. This should be my apple. And so they squabble and fight like a bag of cats. And finally, the other gods are like, stop. We're going to get somebody to judge this, so you don't have to worry about this. So they go to Agamemnon, who is one of the kings of the Greeks, one of the head kings. Yes, McKenna?
Isn't this story like in Odysseus? Like, doesn't that have something to do with it? Don't they tell that story in that?
Possibly. I don't think so, actually, unless that's backstory, but it could be. It could be in the Odyssey. Odysseus doesn't come into the story until quite a bit later. They tell us in the Guide to Camp Half-Blood. Yeah, okay. Well, all right. That's good. Like I say, Riordan just decided, I'm just going to swipe all this stuff. Everybody who wrote it's dead. What are they going to do? Sue me? So then he makes millions of dollars, and that's actually a pretty good idea. Anyway, so Agamemnon is like, I am not judging this contest. I'm sorry. I have this chest cold. Terrible. Chest cold. I can't come out in public. Someone else will have to do it. So they're like, hey, there's this Trojan dude. He's so good looking, but not terribly bright. We'll get him. And Paris is like, yeah, great. Okay. I'm happy to do it. Paris, there he is. Paris is like, yeah, I'm happy to do it. So the goddesses parade themselves before him. We need goddesses. Hold up some goddesses. There, that's great. Yes, that's awesome. So that's a beer. No, that's not, I guess probably not a beer. Anyway, so there's one. Yes, great. So the goddesses parade before him, and Paris is like, geez, I just can't decide. Why don't you go out and take all your clothes off and come back in again? Then I'm sure I'll be able to. Paris is.
All your clothes.
I don't make this stuff up.
Are you sure you want to go outside, Dina?
Take her outside, Eliza.
Yeah, so they come wandering through again without their clothes on, and he's like, wow, this is really tougher than I thought it was going to be. I just can't decide. Why don't you come in one at a time, and we'll talk. So in comes Hera, and she says, all right, look, pal, you know I'm the fairest, but just to like cinch this down, if you choose me,
I'm getting her out.
I will make you the Lord of Asia and Greece. You will become the most powerful king on earth. Paris is like, well, that sounds pretty good, but I cannot be bribed. I'm an impartial judge. Be gone. And so out goes Hera. And then in comes Athena. Where's our bow? Where's our huntress? Athena's great with a bow and spear. Where's our huntress? Wolves have a huntress here with a small but beautiful. There we go. Okay, so in comes Athena. She was always my favorite. Are you kidding me? Every Greek myth would be rated R. Or NC-17. Like, no one admitted
Obviously.
under the age of 17. You don't get to hear this. All right, so I'm like, cleaning this stuff up a lot, too, believe me. So anyway, in comes Athena, and she's like, look, I will make you the most skilled swordsman in the world. No one will be able to defeat you in battle. You'll be wise, you'll be powerful, and
You'd
you'll
win
be
every war.
like the greatest warrior ever. And
You'll win every war.
that's right. Paris says, that sounds very good, but I cannot be bribed. I am an impartial judge. I must, be on the merits alone, be gone. So out goes.
Boy.
In comes Aphrodite. And Aphrodite, she's under no delusions here about how this is going to work. So she comes right up to him and whispers in his ear, listen, big boy, I know what you want. I'm the goddess of love, after all. I know that you have been making eyes at this woman named Helen across the banquet hall at this wedding. I've been watching. I have my sources. Here's the deal, big boy. If you decide that I'm the fairest and give me that apple, you'll have the most beautiful woman in the world for your wife. And Paris is like, I cannot be. Any woman? And Aphrodite's like, any
That's
woman?
correct.
I'm good like that. And he's like, if I can have Helen, I'm pretty confident I'd be convinced you are by far the fairest of all the goddesses. And Aphrodite's like, blam, done. And so he gives her the apple. Aphrodite loves it, and Hera and Athena become insanely jealous. That's going to be a problem in a minute. Anyway, so she takes off the apple, and unknown to the rest of the company, this deal has been struck. Helen, in the meantime, has married a kind of a troglodyte named Menelaus, who happens to be Agamemnon's brother. Agamemnon has married Clytemnestra, Helen's sister. So these are brothers who then married sisters. Agamemnon and Menelaus marry Clytemnestra and Helen. So Helen says, all of a sudden something happens to Helen. Paris comes striding back into the banquet hall, and something happens to Helen. She's like, oh my gosh, this guy, he is such a man. Dear husband, he's an envoy of the Trojans. It would be cruel of us and offensive of us not to invite him to our home. Can't he come and stay with us for a while? Dear husband. And Menelaus, who is also not ever known as all-wise and far-seeing Menelaus, says, yeah, great, that sounds terrific. We'll invite him over right after this. So he invites Paris to their home.
You already have one.
I know that you cannot see this going badly, so I'll just tell you this is going to go
Because
badly. He invited Paris to their home. There's Menelaus. I like that. Menelaus invites Paris to his home and then says, you know, I have this thing I got to go do, but you can stay here and it's cool. My wife will entertain you and it's fine. No problem. Yeah. As the minute his horse is over the horizon, Helen and Paris are like, okay, let's run away together. So they run away together. This is known in the literature as the rape of Helen. But please understand that in ancient times, rape did not mean necessarily theft of virtue so much as kidnapping. So if you know your 7 brides for 7 brothers, those women were sobbing, 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 fit to be tied. Yeah, that one. Okay, that's about the rape of the Sabine women. That didn't mean rape, well, although it probably did, but it also meant the abduction of the Sabine women. So in 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, that's an abduction, not necessarily a rape. Because frankly, most of those girls can take those guys. But anyway, so they didn't lay a hand on them, but they did lay a hand on them, like to abduct them. Anyway, so they run off to Troy. When they get there, the first Paris comes walking in and says, okay, I may have done something not so ambassador-like, but you're going to forgive me. And they're like, no, we won't. What have you done? He's like, well, I kidnapped one of the king's wives. I'm sure it'll be fine. And the Trojans are like, you did what? No way, send her back. And he said, but wait, it's Helen. And she comes walking in, and they're all like, oh. Yeah, that's totally worth it. Yeah, good call. It's fine.
Yep.
Keep her. It's great. Paris, it turns out, was already married. That's okay, because so was Ellen. It's fine. No one's going to care. Menelaus comes home. His house is empty. He's a little peeved. Immediately starts texting his brother, Agamemnon, and saying, hey, Ag, my wife's gone. Did you borrow her for the weekend? No, says Ag. Haven't seen her. I'll bet it's that creep Paris ran off with my wife. Right, yeah, texting. Yeah, that was the thing. It might have been like instant messaging or whatever. It's the same thing, right? I got to go get her back. Want to come? Agamemnon was like, hey, not busy this weekend. Sounds fun. Let's gather all the guys together and we'll all go. We'll get Achilles and Ajax and Odysseus and all the other guys. We'll gather them all together and we'll go punish the Trojans. That sounds like fun.
It's actually, when all the kings showed up to try to win Helen, they all made a pact that
the
one that Helen chose,
that's
they
right,
would all back him up.
Right. That's right. Thank you. Yes, that's right. I left that part out, but you're right. So they kind of have to. They're like, we don't want to fight the Trojans, but we kind of got to now because Menelaus is calling us to honor our word. Why that matters? They don't seem to honor their word in anything else, but they did, and they did this time. They're like, oh, yes, we must honor our word and go fight this war. So they all go down to this place called Aulis. Aulis is a big port not too far from Athens. And here's your 1,000 ships. So they put together their 1,000 ships. I mean, what do you want to do? They can't call each other. There's no cell service. So, right. So they get in their 1,000 ships, and they're like, onward to Troy. And they can't get out of the harbor. Because Poseidon, who is the god of wind, also incidentally,
Built the wall.
the Trojans have a god of wind too. We're going to get to those guys in a minute.
God of sea.
The wind is not going to blow right. Now, remember, Athenian sailing ships, first of all, the Greeks are crappy sailors. They're terrible, right? But second, their ships are not really built for this. So they can't tack against the wind. These are not tacking ships. They don't have lateen sails. They just have the one mast with a big cross piece and a sheet. That's what they've got. So if the wind is behind you, that's awesome. But mostly they just row. But if the wind is blowing hard enough, it doesn't matter how hard you row. Even if you furl up your sail, you still can't row against the wind. And they can't row against this wind. So they're stuck in the harbor day after day, and they can't get out. Finally, Agamemnon sends an envoy to the oracle at Delphi and says, what do I got to do to get out of the darned harbor here? Because we got to go kill these Trojans and get Helen back. And the oracle sends back and says, Poseidon is angry at you forever.
Oh, come on.
In order to appease him, you must make a sacrifice. And so they make all kinds of sacrifices, and none of them work. And finally, he's like, no, you have to sacrifice your daughter.
Oh.
So Agamemnon's like, yeah, okay, that's fine, that's fine. Which one? And they're like, choose. It's good. It's no big deal.
Happy a father.
Yeah, he's not a great at anything, honestly. So he sends for his wife Clytemnestra to bring down their daughter Iphigenia. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of these cool names here. Iphigenia. Okay, so Iphigenia comes down, and and apparently she's cool with it. Like she's, you know what, you have to uphold the honor of the family, and if this is what it takes, then I guess we're gonna have to do it. And so Agamemnon sacrifices Iphigenia. I know, I know. Trust me, it won't go well later for him. But anyway, that's a spoiler alert. Anyhow, so sacrifices, if you deny it all, miraculously, the wind starts to blow the right way. Okay, cool. Now we can go kill the Trojans. Yay! So they all sail out of the harbor and they sail over to Troy. And then we have the Iliad. The entire Iliad, which is one of the greatest poems in all of Western literature, in all of any literature, the entire poem is about a 2 or 3 week period of the Trojan War. Here are your major characters that you need to know. You need to know Achilles, known in French as Achille, if you know your Ender's Shadow series. There is a character named Achille, not Achilles, in that story. You also need to know Hector.
Hector.
Hey, I love this name. Hector is one of the best guys ever. He's one of the very few guys in this entire story that you're like, yeah, okay, that's pretty reasonable. He seems like a decent guy. Everybody else, you're like, really, seriously? This is a hero? Achilles.
Ajax.
So
Ajax.
you know about Achilles, right? Everybody know about Achilles?
Yeah.
Okay. He's the guy with the bum heel. Yeah. So your Achilles tendon is named after Achilles. But when we meet our hero, I use the term loosely. This is not a guy you want to necessarily be like. Achilles is indeed the greatest warrior, but you would be too if your entire life was lived like you hit the star on Mario Kart. Nothing can kill you. Okay? So that's Achilles. Like, nothing can kill him. So I don't know if he's brave or just like, yeah, nobody can kill me in battle anyway. So, but when we meet our Achilles in the Iliad, and I've got an assignment about the Iliad later, when we meet our hero Achilles, he is sulking in his tent because they have captured a village and they have taken all the women, and one of them turns out to have been a priestess, which means that Apollo has now rained blood and fire down on them for days because they captured one of his priestesses, and everybody's getting sick. And so finally, they're like, fine, we'll give the priestess back. The priestess belonged to Agamemnon. Agamemnon's like, okay, fine, we gave the priestess back, but I am the high king. So I cannot go without a prize. I cannot be dishonored. Here, Achilles, give me your prize. So he takes her. And Achilles is like, fine, now I don't have a prize. So I'm not fighting anymore. I just sit in my tent. So he does. He goes and sits in his tent.
Oh.
Meanwhile, Hector's like, hey, Achilles ain't out there on the battlefield. Let's kill us some Greeks. So out he comes with his soldiers, and they start winning, and the Greeks are in trouble, and they're losing, and it's horrible. And this is like 200 pages of poetry. I'm condensing this way down here, okay? So Achilles is like, finally the Trojans are pushing the Greeks back and pushing them back and approaching their ships. They're going to burn their ships. They're going to win the war. It's going to be a horrible disgrace, and they can't have this happen. And in comes Achilles' right-hand man, his best dude, his BFF. And he says, Achilles, we're about to be destroyed. And Achilles is like, I don't care. I don't have my girl, so I'm not doing anything. And they're like, but we're all going to die. He's like, you are. You know, me and I can't, you know. Anyway.
I got Mario style.
That's pretty bad. Yeah, he's a nasty guy. Anyway, so his, I keep wanting to call him Patroclus. Maybe his name is Patroclus. Maybe that's why I want to call him that. Okay, so Patroclus says, okay, fine, you won't come out and fight. Lend me your armor. I'll go out and fight. And Achilles is like, fine, you want to take my armor? Go ahead. So Patroclus dresses up in Achilles' armor, shining golden armor, comes running out of the tent, waving his spear and screeching his war cry. And all the Greeks are like, yay, Achilles is back! And they start fighting, and they win, and they're pushing the Trojans back, and they're about to get to the gates of Troy and destroy the city. So Aphrodite decides it's a good idea to take a hand here on the battlefield. So she comes down and she's like, fine, and she disguises herself as a warrior and she goes out to fight. Needless to say, she's not very good at this. This is not really her thing. And so Patroclus comes and doesn't know that it's her, and Patroclus fights with her, and he wounds her, stabs her in the arm, and she's wounded. Okay, now it's on. Nobody wounds the goddess. Now we're going to have a problem, and she smites him dead. While the Greeks are like, oh, wait, that's not Achilles. Ah! And then everybody decides they're tired of fighting for a minute, and they go home. And they drag poor Patroclus back to the tent of Achilles and dump him at the door of the tent and say, hey, Achilles, remember your best friend? You went out to pretend like he was you? He wants to talk to you. Ha ha, just kidding. He can't talk to you. He's dead. And Achilles comes out and he's like, what have I done? I'm such a terrible person. He doesn't really mean it, but, you know, he goes through the motions. Anyway, so I'm a horrible guy. This is terrible. Oh, now I repent me of now I'm mad. And puts on the armor. He's like, now we're going to go and we're going to, anyway, do all this stuff. Well, this time when they go to battle, the Trojans figure, oh, that's not really Achilles. That must be like some other guy in Achilles' armor. So they go out there, and he and Hector have a mighty duel that lasts for like 3 pages. And finally, because he's like Super Mario, he kills Hector because Achilles kills Hector because he can't be slain, right? So then, in order,
Hector died.
What? Sorry, say that again.
Play.
Yeah, it's very sad. Hector's death is very sad because as soon as he's done, he's like, ha ha ha, I killed your champion. Watch this. And he attaches him to the back of his chariot and rides around the city dragging the body. For this, he will receive his comeuppance.
That's not going to be good for people's view of you.
Yeah, not so much. But apparently Achilles can get away with it. Well, he can't. His turn's coming. Anyway, so he drags Hector and defiles Hector's body. Priam, the king, is watching from the ramparts of Troy, looks down on this and is brokenhearted that his son is being so dishonored, and he needs to bury him and send his soul on to the gods. So at night, he takes off all his armor. He goes down onto the field of battle, and he walks into the drunken Greek festival and goes to Achilles and kneels before Achilles and begs for his son's body. And in what is, in my opinion, the one really great scene in the Iliad, there's a lot of pretty good ones, but the one really great scene, he makes an emotional, tear-filled appeal to Achilles to return the body of his son. And Achilles, showing for the first time and really the only time in his life some sort of human emotion, says, you know what? I get what that might feel like. Please take the body of your son and go. So he gives him back his body. They take him back and bury him in Troy. And the next time they go out on the battlefield, though, Hector was a particular favorite of Apollo's and also of Aphrodite. So they make a plan. They go to Paris and they say, look, we know you're a coward and you don't want to go out and fight, but come out on the battlefield with your bow and arrow here, and let's do some damage. So they go out, and Paris hides himself behind a rock, and when Achilles comes riding out, he shoots him in the heel with a poisoned arrow and kills him, because that's the only place you can hit him. So shoots him in the heel, the poison arrow, Achilles dies, you have the burial of Achilles, and the Trojans are like, hey, Achilles is dead, we got this thing, we're fine now. They're never going to take the city. And the Greeks are like, well, I guess we're never going to take the city because our great hero is dead, so I guess we better leave. And up steps the craftiest of them all, the far-seeing, the bright-eyed, the all-wise Odysseus. And Odysseus says, One moment, Your Highness. I have a cunning plan. Now, you all know what the cunning plan is. Everybody knows what the cunning plan is. The most famous thing in the Trojan War is the horse.
The Trojan horse.
And immediately, whenever I teach this to any of my students, someone inevitably says, why didn't they just burn the daggum thing? That would have made a very different story. Yes, indeed it would have, but here is why they did not do this. And I will explain this to you. There are two major gods in the Phoenician pantheon, and these guys are Phoenicians, the Trojans. O-N-E-N-Z. They are Phoenicians, and there are two major gods in the Phoenician pantheon that we need to pay attention to. One of them is, well, there's more than this, but there's only two that matter for our purposes today. One of them is a god named Yam. Yam is the god of thunder, earthquakes, and horses. Horses are his sacred animal. And if you worship good gods in this area, you worship Yam. So here's the reason why they didn't burn the Trojan horse. You can't do that. Now I know you're like, well, it's just wood, it doesn't matter. Yeah, okay. When was the last time you burned a cross? That sound like something you think you want to do?
Nope.
How about a Bible? You guys use that, tear pages out, maybe tear off some Corinthians to light your fires at night? No?
No, I only use Bible pages for paper airplanes.
Okay. Yeah, you don't burn sacred symbols. You just don't do that. You don't disrespect them. You don't, they can't dismantle the horse. They can't burn it. This is a sacred symbol. They can't do this. So the Greeks have left, and they left behind this horse. Or if you know your Monty Python, a giant rabbit. Anyway, so I knew Copeland would know what I was talking about there. If you haven't seen that particular scene from The Quest for the Holy Grail, seriously, you have to watch that scene. There are a lot of other scenes I'm not recommending that you watch, but that one is funny. Anyway, so somebody tell me briefly the story of the Trojan horse. Like, what's the deal here? Morgan, don't dislocate your arm. It's okay, I saw you. You're good. Okay.
So what happened was Odysseus prayed to Athena, and she said, okay, here's my plan. Build this horse, and then go inside it. and so that's what they did. And then they carved Athena's name into the horse because he wanted them to know that it wasn't his idea, it was Athena's. And so then they went in, and the Trojans were like, oh, this horse, and they pushed them through the gates, and suddenly they were in Troy, and they fought.
Okay, yeah, that's very good. So the Trojans are having a drunken revel because they've won the war. This war lasted 10 years. 10 years. You would be having a festival at the end of it too. So they're having a festival, they all get drunk, and in the middle of the night, out come a bunch of Greeks and throw the gates open. And then in come pouring all the Greeks who were hiding, and they burn Troy. Everybody gets killed, or nearly everybody, except a few people. We'll meet Aeneas in a little bit later on in the late winter, early spring. We'll meet Aeneas. So I'm not going to talk about him today, but Agamemnon decides he's going to take a war bride as well. And so he goes into the temple of Apollo, and who would not be Apollo, it would be the temple of Yam. But I hadn't finished that. Okay, so Yam has a brother. He's the god of like chaos and blackness and night and all of that. I will bet that you know this guy's name.
Hades.
No, because that would be the Greek equivalent. His name shows up in the Bible a lot in the Old Testament. Every time.
Lucifer.
No, it's good, but not quite.
Beelzebub.
Every time in the Old Testament that the prophets are like, why do people not worship Jehovah? You're all gone off worshiping
It's Baal.
Baal. Baal is the brother of Yam. Yam is the good God, the one who saves mankind, the one who is beneficent and generous. Baal is the bad God. And everybody that wants to take everybody down to Hades, except it wouldn't be Hades, it would be Baal or whatever. Anyway, that's his brother. That's where that God comes from. He proves surprisingly difficult to eradicate. Anyway, so back to the story. So Agamemnon decides he's going to take a war bride. So he goes to the temple of Yam, which he called the temple of Apollo, and he chooses out the fairest of all of the maidens in the temple of Apollo, and her name is Cassandra. Spelled with a K because they didn't have a C in Greek. There is no C. Her name is Cassandra. So by the way, Cleopatra is also spelled with a K because she's Greek, not Egyptian. So Cassandra, she has an interesting story as well. She is a very fair young lady, and Apollo, yes, exactly, Eliza. That's not Lou. Yes, Rachel Louise. Yes. Yeah. So she is very fair, and Apollo looked down from on high and saw this beautiful maiden in his temple and said, "Oh, I'm in love with her. I'm going to come down and woo her." So Apollo comes down and woos her. Knowing what you know about Apollo, is this going to go well or not?
No.
No. Apollo is the apotheosis of manly virtue. He is the most beautiful of all the gods. He is manly and heroic and awesome, and girls hate him. So, they just don't, some of them would rather be turned into a tree than be wooed by Apollo. But we'll get to that story at another time. Anyway, so Cassandra's like, no, dude, I mean, it's not you, it's me. I just can't, can we just be friends? And Apollo's like, well, okay, I guess. But you have to give me a kiss. She says, okay, I'll give you a kiss. When he draws near, she spits in his mouth. Kenna's like, yeah, you go, girl. So, so Apollo then says, all right, then I'm going to curse you, blam. And the curse is that you will become a great prophetess, and everything that you prophesy will come true. She's like, that doesn't sound too bad. And he says, and no one will ever believe you.
No believe you.
That's it. That's it, Jetty. Exactly. No one will ever believe you. And she's like, well, that doesn't sound too bad.
What?
It's bad. It's super bad. Cassandra's the one who goes dancing around at the drunken feast, telling everybody not to bring the horse in, because it'll mean the destruction of the city. And everybody's like, yeah, that's crazy. It won't happen. So Agamemnon picks her up and sails back to Greece with her. Odysseus happens to desecrate the temple of Poseidon. This would be the temple of Yam as well. And that's going to be a problem for him. It is not Delphi, no. He's going to desecrate the temple of Apollo, and that's going to be, or the temple of Poseidon, and that's going to be really, really bad for him, because it's going to take him another 10 years to get home, during which time he's going to have many, many great adventures, like Polyphemus, the Cyclops. He will also have some adventures with a woman called Circe, or possibly Dido.
No one is attacking me.
He turns his comrades into pigs.
Yep. You're going to have Scylla and Charybdis. You're going to have lots of cool adventures for Odysseus. He did not think they were cool.
No one.
He'll be shipwrecked a lot.
What about no?
What?
No one.
Oh, yes.
No.
Yeah, that's the
No,
Polyphemus
buddy.
story. We'll
No,
tell that
buddy.
one later. Not going to do that one today.
No one is hurting me. No one is poking my eye out.
Nobody.
Yeah, it's a pretty good story. I like that one. He'll also do the siren thing, where he gets tied to the mast and everybody else puts beeswax in their ears so they can't hear the sirens and so on. He will make his way home and find that in 10 years it has taken him to get home, a bunch of people have been trying to get his wife to marry them. And by doing so, they've been sitting in his house and eating all his food and drinking all his wine for the last 10 years. His wife's name is Penelope. And she is awesome.
I like her.
She is the greatest. Story of Penelope and Odysseus. People know the story.
Yes.
Be married.
McKenna.
Okay.
First hand I saw.
So at the very beginning of Odysseus' story, it starts with, I'm pretty sure it starts with how he has a wife and he has a son. What's his son's name?
Telemachus.
Yeah. So he has Telemachus, and he's a baby when someone comes up to him in his field while he's farming, and he asks him to go help with the Trojan War because Odysseus is so great, and they want him because they're looking for
Adult supervision.
Yeah.
Yeah, more or less.
So, Odysseus pretends to be deaf and not hear him and not be able to go. Right? Or was it not deaf? Was it something
He
like...
acts like he's crazy.
He pretended to be stupid. So then the guy who came and got him, I'm pretty sure he came a few times, and then the last time he took Telemachus and while he was on the farming thing, he was driving his farming, he was probably like, I can't remember exactly, but he was driving something to do with harvesting, stuff like that, and then he took, the messenger person took Telemachus and was in front of the vehicle so that he could make sure that Odysseus wasn't really crazy. And then Odysseus stopped the vehicle, so then that proved that he was able to go. So then Odysseus left, and Telemachus grew up, and eventually he got annoyed because all of the men where do they live?
Outside of Athens somewhere.
Yeah, I forgot what the place was called.
Yeah, me too. It doesn't matter.
Oh yeah, Morgan's giving me the answers. Ithaca is where they live. And so all the men in Ithaca want to marry Penelope, so they're in her house drinking all her food and stealing stuff from her. And so Telemachus is ticked off by them, so he wants to go find his dad so that he can save his mom from getting married by those other guys because they're starting to get really restless and they're threatening some things. So then, can't remember exactly what happens next, but I do know that, what's his name? So Athena turned into a guy, Mentor. Thanks, Morgan. So Athena turned into a guy named Mentor who helps him. Mentor helps Telemachus get his ship ready, and is it 12 men? Morgan, is it 12 men that okay, I can't remember, something like that. And gets all these men to go on the ship so they can go start looking for Odysseus. And then that's when they start. Huh? 10? Okay. So, yeah, and then they start on their voyage to go look for a king who knew Odysseus. And then the king told them, we were all shipwrecked and I made it back home, I think is what happened. And then, but Odysseus is still out there. So he's like, I don't know, I'll give you a few places where he might be. So then, Mentor and Telemachus go start looking for Odysseus. And that's where all the excitement happens.
Okay, so Odysseus comes back to find all these guys in his house, and he's not 100% sure that his wife has been faithful to him, is he? But she has put them off for years and years with what is her trick. By the way, these are pictures from Ithaca here, and frankly, I'd be trying to get home to that too.
She says she has to sew a garment for the man she marries, I think, and she spends all day weaving it, and then at night she unweaves it.
Right.
This is like the same exact thing if any of you have read Percy Jackson. That's what happens.
Of course it is, because where do you think Percy Jackson got it from?
Greek mythology.
Right? Duh. So from this story. Anyway, these are all pictures of Ithaca, which looks like a pretty awesome place to go see to me.
Oh, also, by the time Odysseus gets back, it's been 20 years, so Telemachus is 20.
At least.
21 or something.
Yeah, old. So Telemachus, he disguises himself, Odysseus does, and disguises himself and puts, so that he can kind of find out whether people are doing the right thing in there. And he discovers that all these people are basically eating him out of house and home and disrespecting his wife and whatever. So he challenges them to draw Odysseus's bow, and none of them can do it. And then he's like, well, I want to try. I should have a chance to try. And they're like, no, dude, old man, you have no chance. You can't possibly do that. And he's like, but give me a chance. I'm stronger than I look, sonny. And then he strings the bow and shoots an arrow through a bunch of axe heads. There is I can't remember the name of the distribution company, but at the beginning of some movies, you will at one point see, at the beginning of a movie, a guy in a Greek helmet shooting an arrow through a bunch of axe heads. That's this story.
I think it's
and then,
the Greatest Showman.
What? Go, the beginning of Greatest Showman?
Before the Great.
So that's the distribution company. You have adopted that myth as sort of their graphic. Anyway, so he shoots the arrow through the axe heads, and then he has Telemachus bolt all the doors, and he shoots down all the suitors. It's pretty bloody, but they deserved it. So they're all bad, so it's fine. So then, yes, I do, Emma. And I will be posting those recordings at some point here. Okay, so then he goes to Penelope and he says, have you been faithful? And she says, I've been 100% faithful, but I don't know you. So I don't know that you say you're Odysseus, and you certainly smell like Odysseus, but are you really Odysseus? Tell me something only Odysseus would know. And he says, your bed has been carved from the trunk of a single tree, and every night you nestle in the arms of this tree, like the arms of your faithful husband. And she's like, oh, it is you. And he's like, oh, and it's you, and we're faithful to each other. And it's like one of the only really heartwarming stories in the whole thing.
Actually, she says that she would have the servants take the bed out of the room, and he's like, that's impossible unless someone had tampered with it, because it was the...
Oh, right. That's it. That's right. Good, thank you. Yes, that's right. Okay, meanwhile, Agamemnon has come home to his house. Cassandra has been telling him all the way home, look, when you get home, don't go in your house. And he's like, what do you mean don't go in my house? Of course, I'm going to go in my house and greet my faithful wife, Clytemnestra, and all my people love me. And she's like, okay, well, if you're going to go in your house, it's fine, but don't take a bath. He's like, of course I will take a bath because I'm stinky after 10 years of war and whatever. So he Gets home, and Clytemnestra's like, my lord husband, please come in. Never mind this dude over here who is just one of your faithful servants. And he goes in and he goes in the bath, and she and the faithful servant throw a net over him and say, hey, remember sacrificing a daughter? Want to know what that felt like? Here you go. And they fill him full of arrows while he's in the bath. Yeah, he gets his.
Like in Narnia, the second one.
What?
You know that scene where he's hiding behind the curtains, or at least they think he's hiding behind the curtains, and then they crossbow like the.
And they. That's Hamlet.
No, it's
Yeah.
Narnia. It's the
Yes.
the movie
Or in Narnia when
I-
the Great Lion.
I know what you're saying.
when they're like the uncle's
trying to
trying to
get
murder
Prince
Prince
Caspian.
Caspian in his sleep.
Oh, yeah. It's still
Yeah,
Hamlet, but I remember that now. It's still Hamlet. Anyway, Shakespeare knew his stuff, and Lewis read his Shakespeare. Anyway, so yeah, all these guys, they all know this stuff. They know all this stuff. That's why all this stuff keeps appearing in things. They're like, hey, that's just like blah, blah, blah. Well, they all read it all. They've all read all this stuff. They know all these things. Anyway, so unfortunately for poor Clytemnestra, her children were watching her kill their father, and they will grow up and kill her. It's a fun story. It ends bad for like everybody, like pretty much except the
Family
business.
Feud.
And it took him 20 years to get home.
It's like when everyone reads that, they're like, oh, that would be a good story plot. It's not like everyone else has used it.
But it's still fun, though. That doesn't mean it's not a good story plot. It is. These are fun to write about. People put these things in all the time. I will explain some of that in a minute, or next week when we get together. Okay, so here ends the Trojan War. And Troy is destroyed so thoroughly that it was completely wiped off the map, and until Heinrich Schliemann in 1870 went and dug it back up again, nobody even knew where it was. Completely annihilated. The Greeks will get theirs. This is the high point of early Greek civilization. They will end up in some mysterious fashion that we still don't really know. They will end up being wiped out themselves. And there, for about 200 years, their society will disappear. And you get nothing but mud huts for 200 years. McKenna.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes.
And so we all know Greek gods are not really real. So how...
We are too. What do you mean we're not real? Of course we are.
Is that you, Zeus?
That is a no, Gal, no. I'm Apollo.
You're Apollo? Oh. Tell Zeus I said hi.
We're not exactly simpatico at the moment. Go ahead, McKenna.
I'm excited.
Anyway, so Ithaca apparently is a real place, and
Yes,
lots
it
of
is.
this seems like there's
And it's quite beautiful.
yeah, and it seems like there's a lot of evidence from this story. So like the question is, how much of this really is real?
Okay, that's a really great question. And the answer to that question is, I have no idea, and neither does anybody else. But
I know who.
I
know
thought
who
you
does
were Apollo.
oh
I know
yeah,
who really does.
that's right. I'm the god of learning. So let me learn you then.
Go learn something.
Well,
That's not the correct grammar.
Is it?
No, Rachel,
I
don't.
can do whatever I want.
No.
fine.
I know
okay.
who knows
I
what
know how to
happened.
use correct grammar, but I also know how to misuse it so that you're paying, to see if you're paying attention. So I'm glad you were. Anyway, the
I know
dude named Mentor,
who actually know
obviously
what
the
happened.
word mentor comes from that, right? There is an Ithaca. Most of the places are real. When they dug Troy up where Troy was supposed to be, Troy was there. We like little brothers in this class. It's okay. Hi,
That's
Andrew.
all 7 of mine.
No, it's too many. But I think a lot of it is true, to be honest. The gods, the myths are usually used to explain things that it would otherwise just be put down to random chance or bad luck or whatever. So I think a lot of times when they're talking about, and then Zeus, thunderous Zeus cast his thunderbolt and so fell dead on the battlefield or whatever, they're using that to explain something. And my guess is they really believed a lot of it too. That there's solid evidence that the Greeks really did believe a lot of these myths were true.
It's on, and you know it.
We look at them and say, I don't really think Zeus transformed himself into a swan. And then his girlfriend gave birth to 2 eggs. Like, I'm not really,
No, because Poseidon.
I'm kind of struggling with all that.
Yes.
But is it possible that a woman had a pair of twins? Yeah.
It never said anything. It just
no,
said that she
because
had
Quadruplets, technically.
Well, okay, yes. Is it possible that she had quadruplets? Theoretically possible.
Wait.
But
I
only
have
theoretically.
quadruplets.
It can happen. It just doesn't. But if it did, that would be seen as an omen of supernatural favor.
I'm a quadruplet.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Yeah. And in
Yes, I
exactly
am.
that same way, it would be seen as divine favor. Like, that would be a miracle. 4 children at once would be a miracle. Plus, you would probably die, and so would they. And if they all survived, that would be
And if she survived as well, the mother.
strong evidence that the gods had done something really cool. Because otherwise, I mean, that just can't happen. That just, there's no way that can happen. So anyway, I think a lot of it is true. And I think that a lot of myths have historical significance, probably not exactly those stories. Like, I don't really believe that Arachne was turned into a spider. On the other hand, it's in a kind of an explanatory tale. Yeah, modern times you can have 4 children and survive, but we're talking about ancient times where having 1 child kills the mother fairly frequently. So important to pay, I think, respect to the mythological stories, because I think there's some real history there. I treat them all seriously. I'm always looking for truth wherever I can find it. And so I treat all the myths with respect and seriousness. I take them all seriously and try to figure out what I think.
You do. Yep.
What's that,
Of
Jay?
course you take them seriously. You're the teacher.
Yeah, but I have a lot
of take them seriously. You're
most
the
of my
teacher.
teachers didn't. Most of my history teachers didn't take myths seriously. Fortunately, my father did. He doesn't believe in any of them at all. I believe in them much more strongly than he does. But I think it's worth paying attention to. I think it's what people believe and the stories they tell about what they believe. I think it's worth paying attention to that. I think there's a lot to learn there. Okay. What was next? Okay. About next week, in the last couple minutes that we have here. We're scheduled to go from 9 to 1, which is a long time. No doubt we'll have plenty to do. There'll be plenty of stuff to do. You are assembling miscellaneous gear for this, I'm assuming. This is the first time I've ever tried this whole chariot thing. and I would not be trying it now if it weren't for you guys, because it seems to me like this is kind of a
That might be
special
a
group.
little bit worrying.
I'm sure it'll work. Bilbo, do you have something to say?
Yeah, how big do you want the boxes to be when we bring them?
Big, small. I'm bringing an assortment. But I can't bring enough to do the whole thing. So you guys will have to provide. And we'll just do the best we can, and we'll see how it works.
As you said, we can never have enough cardboard.
Yeah, you can't have too much of that. I don't know how it'll work. We're going to try something together, and we're going to see. We're going to encounter engineering problems that we will not be able to solve. We will encounter a great deal of merriment and jollity, and people being dumped on their can because their chariot fell apart. I'm assuming that's going to happen. I'm actually really looking forward to that.
I made this like sweet chariot thing, and I have this pressure washer as like a horse that I put a wheel on. It was awesome. It was motorized, and then you canceled it, and it broke.
Oh,
so I blame you.
I accept the blame. Most of these chariots will probably be human drawn. That's fine. I don't know how it'll work, but we're gonna learn things, and that's the thing to that.
Is human drawn by, as in like we will be drawing them, or someone else will be drawing them?
I intend to draw a chariot, at least one.
You or us? Like, are we drawing our own chariot?
I'm participating. I can't ride him one way too much. I'm putting Rachel Louise in the chariot. And I'm giving her a mighty lance, and she will smite you down on the opposite end of the field if you attempt to oppose us. Abby.
Yeah, that's likely.
The smiting thing?
Yeah.
I haven't done any smiting in a while. I'm looking forward to some smiting.
I
I've been
still think I
smitten.
could beat most of you in sword combat.
You're probably right. I got smitten by an arrow, so yes, Abby.
Well, that's because you do every week at co-op.
Go ahead, Abby.
You give me a list of all the things we need to bring to the thing?
I sent one out. I'll send another one out.
Okay.
Also, I'm thinking that we're going to have a kind of like a half an hour break for lunch. I know it's like 10 minutes and whatever, but I'm thinking we're going to need a bigger break than that, because I have like a couple things that I'm going to need you to do to prepare for the capper to our festival. That's what I call our getting together. Even though it is not a triduum, it is still a festival for me to get together with you. I'm toying with an idea. I want to see what you think about this. Would you like to have let's say we take a half an hour for lunch, would you like to have a little bit higher level discussion about the Iliad and the Odyssey with people who are, let's say, not going to be bored, like apparently Eliza's bored, with big yawns, I don't know. That's what that means. Maybe you just didn't go to bed last night, which that's, so yeah, we'll be working as teams. We're going to break into teams to build these chariots. So you'll be able to borrow from other people's stuff and build monstrous 18-wheel chariot things, or I don't know what you're going to build. I have no idea. I've never tried this before. It's just an idea. Maybe it won't work. A lot of my stuff doesn't. But if you would like to be a part of Mr. C's Table for Lunch, where we will be discussing a little bit higher level literature and Homer and the Iliad and the Odyssey, and maybe quoting great passages from it and stuff like that, then I'm going to send out an assignment today. If you're going to be a part of that table for that lunch, you're going to need to have read the selection that I'm going to give you. It is not short either. It will take some reading. See you, Logan. So I'm just telling you, you don't have to do it. There's no requirement. I'm not giving anybody any grades or anything, but if that sounds like something that you would like to be a part of, then I'm going to send out a little excerpt from the Iliad today that I would like you to read. And if you do that, and you pass the one question, very short quiz, you can sit at my table at lunch and we'll talk about it. I know for some of you, you're kind of itching for a little bit higher level conversation on some of this stuff, and that's okay. A little bit deeper dive. That's good. I want to do that. You want to do that, I want to.
Yeah.
So watch for that email later today. It'll be today. But first I have to go see my grandbaby. This is the first day that I can say that in my life. That's cool. I need to go see my grandbaby. Yes, intelligent conversation. Baby whoopee cushion. Yes, that's right, Hiram. I asked my students yesterday, they hadn't named the child. They have now named her. I hope not. They have now named her. English can trip you up.
Name her Jetty Jr.
No, they went with Maisie Nicole.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
It is, and so is she.
Oh my gosh! I need to find the pictures.
I can say.
I emailed it out last night. A picture last night. I thought it was pretty. I liked it. I thought I'll send some more pics too. I thought I sent one yesterday. Look, check your email or your mom check her email or whatever. I don't know.
We didn't get one. We want one. We want some.
What?
Mom wants. My mom wants pictures and she doesn't have any.
I want one.
What?
Unless her name is Jetty Jr.
Okay. If I did not, well, thank you, Abby. If you didn't get an email with a picture in it yesterday, I was positive. Oh, wait. No, I didn't. I will send that today. I sent that to somebody else. I sent it to a different class. I'll send it to you. I might be able to pull it up. Can I pull it up? No, I can't. It's on the other computer. Okay. I will. Yeah, rather than posting in the chat, which will be really hard for me to capture, email me and say, hey, Mr. C, make sure you get my email. I think I have most of your emails, but sometimes I only have your parents' emails. Do you want me to have your email? Email me. And the email address, of course, again, is Mr. C at aliasmrc.com. I think. Wait, that
I'm
didn't.
not going to type in all that stuff. Why can't you email me?
Well, I could explain how that works, but I don't think you'd really understand any of it. There's a lot of math.
I have you know that I'm great at math.
I bet
am
you
in the
are,
fourth
actually.
grade.
That doesn't surprise me. Okay, so I can email you instead of your parents. I can email you and your parents. I know how to use this magical thing called email. I can send lots of it. I'd be happy to do that. Bye, Mary. Glad you were here. Okay, so here ends the lesson. Next week, we're going to start with chariots. I think it's going to be really cold. So we may call an audible on this when we get there, but we're going to start with chariots. Then I have a game for us to play. And I think that will probably get us most of the way to lunch. Then we'll have a higher level discussion at lunch. What's what called? You can't tell me because you don't know what it's called. What, the game? Oh, I can't tell you that. It's a game I made up.
Why not?
Mr. C, we have to go.
Really? And then after lunch, we will finish up with a capper activity that I think you're going to really dig. Really think you will. So I can't wait to see you guys next week. But for this week, our class is ended. One-Armed Joey will be clicking them out of here in just a second. And then that will make me sad.
Well,
So I'll say
goodbye.
goodbye to all of you. The recording of this class will be up a little later today. And I will see you all in a week's time.
Goodbye.
BSU is the best.
Bye,
There you
Josh.
go.
Don't you dare
Bye,
start that
Morgan.
again.
Bye, Taya.